And no brain holds within it more mysteries than that of American president and ketchup-fueled machine Donald Trump.
Imagine being so rich and privileged that you think the word groceries is some quaint, old-timey expression. Welcome to Trump's world, where he's fascinated by this exotic concept most of us deal with weekly. In this hilarious deep dive, we track Trump's evolving relationship with the word groceries.
Yeah, groceries. I mean, who uses that word except everybody all the time? But recently, one mysterious word has been stuck in Trump's brain.
I went on the border and I went on groceries. It's a very simple word, groceries. Like almost, who uses the word? I started using the word, the grocery.
From complete unfamiliarity to suddenly claiming he used it a lot on the campaign. Did he forget his own words, or is this another Trump special, where reality bends to whatever he says in the moment? Before we move on, I'd like to ask you a small favor. If you appreciate this content, please take a second to like this video and subscribe to the channel. Over 98% of you watch the videos without subscribing. It costs you nothing, but it makes a huge difference to us. So, did you click the subscribe button? Great. Thank you so much. Now, back to the video.
Donald Trump found the word fascinating, and this was not just a fleeting thought. His brain has been contemplating the word groceries for a while now.
More people tell me about groceries. The word grocery, I've heard it more in the last year.
Did Trump seriously just act like he invented the word groceries? I mean, come on. We're living in a world where a former president and current presidential candidate appears genuinely surprised by one of the most common words in the English language. Let's roll the tape and see what Donnie Diapers has blessed us with this time. In a recent rally that left everyone's jaws on the floor, Trump decided to enlighten his followers about this exotic new term he's apparently introduced to the American lexicon. Listen to this gem. I started using the word the groceries. Yeah, groceries. I mean, who uses that word except everybody all the time? Wait, what? Did the orange turd just admit that everyone uses this word while simultaneously suggesting he pioneered it? That's like claiming you invented breathing or walking. Congrats, Trump. You've discovered something that's been in daily use since before you were born. The most bizarre part isn't even what he said. It's how he said it. Just look at his face when he pronounces groceries. His eyebrows rise in that self-satisfied way, like he's just solved world hunger rather than identified something you buy at Walmart. The smug little smile, the knowing nod, all suggesting he's letting his followers in on some sophisticated insider term. Breaking news. Grumpy Trumpy. Kindergartners know what groceries are. The audience reactions are priceless. You can practically see the mental gymnastics as they try to process this moment. Some are nodding along because, well, that's what you do at a Trump rally. Others look confused, probably wondering if they've missed something. Is groceries supposed to be fancy now? Should I pretend I've never heard it before? Trump speaks about groceries with the wide-eyed wonder of a billionaire who's just discovered that food doesn't magically appear in golden refrigerators. He treats the concept like it's some quaint, old-timey custom he's reintroducing to America. You see, folks, there are these buildings called stores where regular people exchange money for food items. Isn't that something? We showed this clip to people on the street, and their reactions were universal. One woman in Cleveland laughed so hard she spilled her coffee. A man in Denver just stared at his phone for 30 seconds before asking, "Is this real?" A teenager in Atlanta simply said, "Okay, boomer," and walked away. The consensus was clear. Nobody can believe this is real life. Which brings us to the obvious question. Has Trump ever actually been grocery shopping? Picture it. Donald Trump pushing a cart down the cereal aisle, comparing prices on Cheerios, fumbling with one of those produce bags that never open on the first try. I'm willing to bet my last dollar that Trump has never scanned his own items at a self-checkout or argued with himself about whether he really needs those cookies. This might explain why he treats groceries like some archaeological discovery. When you've spent 70+ years having other people buy your food, I guess everyday shopping terms might seem exotic. It's the equivalent of Marie Antoinette saying, "Let them eat cake." Except Marie Antoinette probably knew what cake was. Trump's bewilderment with basic concepts isn't new, but this one reveals something important. His confusion about everyday experiences shows just how disconnected he is from regular Americans' lives. While families struggle with rising food prices, Trump is marveling at the very concept of purchasing food. It's like watching an alien try to understand human customs by reading a 1950s home economics textbook. The word groceries has been in common use in America since the early 1900s. Not exactly breaking linguistic ground here, Donald. Most Americans use this word several times a week without feeling the need to congratulate themselves. "Honey, I'm going to get groceries" is not a revolutionary statement, unless you're Trump apparently. What's next? Will he introduce us to other groundbreaking terms like shoes or Tuesday? Maybe he'll explain this innovative concept called weather, where sometimes water falls from the sky. The possibilities for Trump's linguistic discoveries are endless. Just when you think Trump's relationship with the word groceries couldn't get any weirder, his own speeches tell a completely different story. Remember how he acted like this common word was his fresh linguistic invention? Well, I took the liberty of checking the receipts, and trust me, they don't add up. Let's rewind the Trump tape and check if his grocery claims hold water. The man stood there with absolute conviction, telling America he started using the word, the groceries. He delivered this line like he'd just introduced us to some rare French delicacy instead of a word that's printed on store signs across America. But something about this whole grocery revelation seemed fishy, and not the kind you'd find in the seafood section. So we did what any reasonable person would do. We dug through the archives. And wouldn't you know it, Trump's been tossing around groceries like it's his favorite word for years. Roll the footage, please. Here's Trump in 2017 talking about grocery prices. And here he is in 2018 mentioning groceries again. And 2019. And 2020. The hits just keep coming. But here's where it gets really good. In one particularly telling clip, Trump himself states, and I quote, "The cost of groceries, a word that I used a lot on the campaign. Did you catch that?" He literally admits to using this supposedly newfound term a lot during his previous campaign. This is like someone claiming they invented pants while wearing pants they bought 3 years ago. The contradiction is so glaring, it's almost impressive. Trump describes groceries as an old-fashioned word, but it's a beautiful word, a very descriptive word. So which is it, Donnie? Is it a fancy, old-timey word you're graciously introducing to us peasants? Or is it a term you've been casually dropping for years? The cognitive dissonance is strong enough to power a small city. Let's play a fun game called Trump Grocery Counter. Our team counted exactly how many times Trump has said groceries in recorded speeches before his big grocery revelation. The number might shock you. Actually, no, it won't, because obviously he's said it tons of times. The only person shocked by this information appears to be Trump himself, who seemingly forgets his own vocabulary from one day to the next. Can we get a side-by-side comparison on screen? On the left, we have Trump proudly announcing his linguistic innovation. On the right, a supercut of him saying groceries approximately 7 million times throughout his political career. The two Trumps should really meet sometime. They'd have so much to talk about. Though I suspect neither would listen to the other. What's particularly fascinating is how Trump delivers both contradictory statements with the exact same level of absolute certainty. When he claims he started using the word, he has that familiar squinty-eyed head-nodding confidence. And when he casually mentions using it a lot on the campaign, same thing. Total conviction. It's like watching someone confidently declare the sky is green one day and blue the next, never acknowledging the switch. Here's what's really happening. Trump has mastered the art of saying whatever pops into his head at any given moment and delivering it with such confidence that some people actually believe him. It's grocery gaslighting. He's trying to make us question whether we've been saying groceries our whole lives or if we just picked it up from him recently. Next thing you know, he'll be claiming he invented breathing. You almost have to admire the shamelessness. Most politicians would be embarrassed to be caught in such an obvious contradiction. They'd issue clarifications or claim they were misunderstood. Not Trump. He simply doesn't care that these two statements cannot possibly both be true. In Trump's world, facts aren't fixed things. They're more like fashion accessories you can change depending on your mood. The saddest part? While actual Americans struggle to afford real groceries thanks to inflation, our former president is busy playing word games, acting surprised by basic vocabulary. It's like watching someone marvel at their discovery of shoelaces while people around them can't afford shoes. So we needed to see if Trump was living in some parallel universe where groceries is a fancy historical term instead of a word found on signs at every supermarket in America. We sent our field correspondent Grace Kulenschmidt out to interview regular humans who actually buy their own food, unlike the gilded toilet enthusiast himself. The results were exactly what you'd expect. Normal people staring into the camera with the kind of confusion usually reserved for watching your grandparents attempt TikTok dances. When Grace showed them clips of Trump proudly introducing America to the exotic word groceries, their reactions ranged from genuine bewilderment to that specific type of laugh that sounds like your brain is short-circuiting. Wait! He thinks groceries is some kind of rare vintage term? Asked one woman, who probably uses the word at least 3 times a week without considering herself a linguistic pioneer. Another man simply blinked rapidly, as if his mental system was performing an emergency reboot. It turns out that when you ask everyday Americans if they're familiar with the term groceries, they look at you like you've just asked if they're aware that water is wet. The best response came from one interviewee who didn't mince words, declaring that word is so bleep old, emphasizing what we all know: groceries isn't some obscure vocabulary pulled from a dusty Shakespearean manuscript. It's a completely standard word that absolutely everyone uses, which makes Trump's self-congratulatory introduction of it all the more bizarre. Grace took the investigation deeper, asking people to demonstrate what they think groceries means. Unsurprisingly, everyone immediately understood it refers to food purchased from a store. Nobody hesitated. Nobody needed clarification. They just nodded and said some version of, yeah, food you buy at the store. Compare that to Trump's definition that groceries means everything you eat, which is like defining shoes as those things your feet go into. Technically not wrong, but missing some pretty fundamental specificity. The generational consensus was particularly telling. Grace interviewed teenagers, middle-aged folks, and seniors. And amazingly, all age groups were equally familiar with this supposedly arcane terminology. From Gen Z to boomers, everyone seemed to have somehow mastered this complex linguistic concept without Trump's helpful introduction. It's almost as if groceries has been a common part of American vernacular for generations. In one particularly funny segment, Grace challenged interviewees to come up with words that actually would be considered old-fashioned alternatives to groceries. This produced some creative gems like mouth stuffers and gribbleshanks, words that, unlike groceries, actually would cause confusion if you used them at your local Kroger. "Excuse me, where are your mouth stuffers?" is a question that would get you concerned looks from store employees, unlike asking about groceries, which is literally their entire business model. What became abundantly clear through these interviews was the universal bewilderment about why a presidential candidate would pretend to be introducing a completely ordinary word to the American public. The disconnect between Trump's perception and reality created a kind of collective cognitive dissonance among interviewees, who couldn't quite wrap their heads around someone being so proudly wrong about something so basic. "Does he think we don't buy food?" one person asked, genuinely perplexed. Another wondered if Trump had ever set foot in a grocery store, which is actually a fair question. The man who once suggested you need ID to buy cereal doesn't exactly seem intimately familiar with the shopping habits of regular Americans. The field segment perfectly captured the absurdity of the situation. A former president and current candidate trying to take credit for a word that appears on signs, apps, and conversations across America millions of times every day. It's like watching someone proudly announce they've discovered this amazing new concept called shoes, while everyone else wonders if they're being pranked. So there you have it, folks. While Trump struggles with basic English words like groceries, actual Americans are struggling to pay for them. The irony is thicker than his orange makeup. This is a man who supposedly understands the free market, yet seems shocked by the concept of purchasing food. The real disconnect isn't just linguistic, it's economic. Millions of Americans worry about affording dinner, while Trump marvels at discovering words everyone else has used their entire lives. Maybe tomorrow he'll discover another everyday concept, like empathy or truth. Though I wouldn't count on it. For now, let's marvel at a presidential candidate who thinks he invented grocery shopping.